Hello, this is Allie with the Perception Trainers, author of The Perception Diet, and today I want to talk to you about why you should never fear not becoming your highest self, why you don't even have to work towards becoming your higher self, and why your higher self already exists. Okay, so in my last video, I talked to you about karma, and we talked about the difference between living from your karma and living from your dharma, right? So again, just to kind of overview this, and I'll put links down below. So if you haven't watched that video, I would suggest watching that video first, because yeah, basically what I'm going to talk about in this video is going to completely tie into that one. So when we look at dharma, right, this is an ancient Indian way of essentially saying when you're living your dharma, you're living your ultimate purpose, okay? And in the New Age community, this is what we would think of as living as your highest self. Living out the kind of like most divine expression that you could possibly live out in this current incarnation that you are in, okay? So living the highest truth, the highest purpose of your soul in this body, okay? And this is a very beautiful sentiment and a very beautiful thing that most people on the spiritual path are striving towards, right? We want to live as our highest selves. We want to be the highest version of who we are. We really want to live out this highest expression. And for most of us, this is absolutely an external calling in that, you know, we are influenced by spiritual teachers, we're influenced by spiritual people around us, we want to live up to kind of expectations and all this stuff, but for most of us, it's a deep inner calling, right? That you just have a sense inside yourself that you want to be the highest version of you, that you want to be more loving, that you want to be more compassionate, that you want to be more in alignment with whatever's happening, that you want more peace, that you, and even that you have like higher abilities, that you have higher wisdom, that you have higher knowledge that you're not accessing, that you're not living, that you have higher skills and capabilities and capacities that you're not fully expressing. And so there's a part of you that is striving towards living like that person and being that person. And so this generally, in a lot of ways, is one of the things that draws people to spiritual practices, right? We're drawn to yoga, we're drawn to Christianity, we're drawn to like New Age spirituality, all of these things, because to us, it's looking like, if I just follow this thing, if I just follow this person, if I just follow these teachings, if I just start to live this kind of like good lifestyle, eventually I'm going to become my higher self, and I'm going to get rid of all these things about me that are not my higher self, and then I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be free, I'm going to be at peace, I'm going to be living my purpose, I'm going to feel this sense of deep satisfaction in who I am and what I'm offering here in the world. And so the first thing that I want to say about that is that's totally understandable. I get that. I've been there too. I know exactly what that feels like, where you feel like you're just not being the person that you came here to be, and you're desperately looking, or maybe not desperately, you're just looking for something outside of you to help you get to that place, or you feel like you found that thing and you're kind of like striving on the path or going down the path, and you're finding that there are these parts of you that you feel are really out of alignment with your highest self, that you feel are not who you're supposed to be or who you really are, that you can tell cause you pain, that cause other people pain, maybe that are self-destructive or just internally, you know, monkey mind chatter stuff that goes on in your head, just like that are destructive in some way. And you're trying to use these spiritual practices or do these things to get rid of these things about yourself, right? And this is what most of us think of as working towards living as our highest self, right? We're trying to step into dharma by competing with or trying to destroy our karma, right? So the karma being the bad things that we do, or the bad things that befall us because of the things that we do. That's usually what we think karma is. Now, in the last video, I said the true measure of karma is, are you fully aware of yourself as the divine being that you are, that's having a life experience, and therefore having your experience through the lens of perception that there's nothing wrong with you and therefore nothing wrong with life, and therefore you are not in resistance to anything, and therefore everything that happens to you you're able to perceive as a blessing, and at the same time you're able to have no self-destructive behaviors because of the perception you have of yourself, which would be dharma? Or are you living from a place of believing that there's something wrong with you? Okay? Because again, so long as you're living from a place of believing that you're not your highest self, of believing that there's something impeding you from being your higher self, as believing that there's whatever these behaviors are that you have now deemed not in alignment with your higher self as being wrong and bad and shouldn't be there, yeah? You're in karma. And so long as you're in karma, you're going to be self-destructive. Okay? So it's kind of like a loop. That's why they call it a wheel of karma. Because it's like the more you believe that you're a shitty person, the more you behave like a shitty person, the more you try and fight being a shitty person, and the more you try and fight being a shitty person, the more you actually behave like a shitty person, the more you believe you're a shitty person, the more you fight it, you beat yourself up and all this thing, and you just go round and round and round and round and round and round and round, and it never ends. You can take on all the spiritual practices that you want, you can take on all the sadhana that you want, you can do all of these like mental gymnastics, spiritual gymnastics, stand on your head for 400 hours a day, but so long as you still perceive yourself to have something wrong with you that needs to be fixed, you're going to live in a way that there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed. Okay? Because your perception of yourself at this point is the deciding factor of whether you live as your highest self or you live as your karmas. Okay? Because this is the bottom line. Your higher self already is. You are not becoming it. You are not working your way towards it. You are not developing it. You are not cultivating it. The fact that you can even imagine your higher self means that it already is. It's in the past. It's done. Okay? It was created at the same moment that everything else was created. Right? Albert Einstein tells us this. All time, all space, all exists simultaneously. Meaning your higher self already exists. Okay? And I really want you to just take a pause and think about that. That there is no higher self to develop. There's no higher self to become. There's no journey from here to there. It already is. The only thing that's stopping you from experiencing yourself as your higher self, right? Rather than experiencing yourself as your lower self, which is what you're doing right now, is the perception that there is distance between who you are now and your higher self. That's the only thing stopping you. Okay? Now, is it wrong that we have a perception of ourselves as not being our higher selves? Of course not. This life journey is what it is. There are no mistakes. Okay? It is not a mistake that you don't perceive yourself to be your highest self. It is not wrong that you perceive yourself to be lower. It is not out of alignment that you're doing all your spiritual practices and you're doing all these things to try and get to your higher self, to try and become your higher self. It's not even wrong that you're beating yourself up for not being your higher self and thinking you need to like do this and do that and discipline yourself and blah, 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 blah to try and get there. None of this is wrong. Okay? This is all a part of the experience that eventually is going to lead you to the realization that you always have been your higher self. You always will be your higher self. And all you had to do was give yourself permission to experience that. Okay? Pretty much everyone who ever reaches a state of enlightenment says this. That they didn't get there one day and see the whole journey behind them and be like, oh yes, this journey I took. It was all leading me here. Most of them wake up one day and are like, oh, that's it. I just already was this. Nothing was ever not this. Right? And that's because it's true. You're already your higher self. It's done. It's over. It's the past. Okay? If you believe in time, it's not the future. It's the past. Okay? So what does this mean? This means it doesn't require crazy spiritual practices to become your higher self. It doesn't require 400 days of 8 hours a day meditation. It doesn't require learning to stand on your head. It doesn't require any special technique. Okay? Becoming your higher self is simply about saying, I'm going to start to perceive myself as already my higher self. That's it. You stop looking for yourself to be wrong. You stop looking for yourself to be messed up. You stop looking for all the things inside yourself that you need to fix. You stop looking inside yourself for all the things that are out of alignment. You stop looking inside yourself for all the fucked up stuff. And you start saying, I'm already my higher self. I'm already my higher self. Maybe you picture your higher self and you feel what it feels like to be your higher self. And then you start to look at all of your behaviors and all of the things you do and all the things you want to do and all the things that you do on a regular basis, and you bring yourself to your behaviors, you bring yourself to your thoughts, you bring yourself to all of your behaviors, your patterns, your cycles, and all of these things, and you simply bring awareness to them. Because what is awareness? This is the thing. When you can bring non-judging awareness, you are bringing your higher self to the situation. Okay? And I hope that kind of blows your mind. That every single time you step into non-judging awareness, that is when you're stepping into your higher self. Not when you help the old lady across the street, not when you donate $100 to your favorite charity, not when you put down the ice cream and choose to eat a carrot instead. None of those things are you necessarily demonstrating your higher self. You can do all of those things from your lower self. Okay? The moment you bring non-judging awareness to what you're doing, what you're thinking, you have become your higher self. And in that one simple being, because I don't want to call it an action, it's a being, you will know automatically, this aligns with me, this doesn't. Because here's the other thing about your higher self. Okay? It's not like a paint by numbers book where everyone's higher self is like this, right? Everyone's higher self practices yoga at 6 a.m. and then does their 1 hour of meditation and then eats a 100% vegan diet and donates to charity and blah, 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 and is quiet all the time and compassionate all the time and never says what they're thinking or whatever we all think that this higher, or never cries, never has an emotional reaction, never gets angry. All of these crazy things that we make up about what being our higher self actually is, that's not what it is. Your higher self is not a paint by numbers situation. Your higher self is not a moral code. Your higher self has nothing to do with this formula that most people think that it is. Okay? Your higher self is still an individual inside the unity awareness. Okay? So when you bring non-judgmental awareness to your stuff, okay, this is all that is required to stop any self-destructive behavior. Because when you bring that non-judging awareness, okay, you are bringing your higher self, you are bringing your dharma, you are bringing the perception that there is nothing and never has been anything wrong with you, right, because of the non-judgment part, to whatever it is that you are doing. And because of that, anything that doesn't align with that is going to dissolve. It's not going to feel right. You're not going to be able to do it. So like for instance, rather than trying to beat yourself up and get yourself not to do what you think you should do, or your bad behaviors, blah, blah, blah. So say you have this behavior that every night after work you come home and you eat an entire pizza and it makes you feel like shit, but you can't stop yourself from doing it, right? And you feel like this is not in alignment with your higher self because you're not eating healthy, you're hurting your body, you're doing all this stuff. Rather than using discipline to try and get yourself to stop eating the pizza every night, rather than beating yourself up, rather than doing any of these things and telling yourself, my higher self would be like this, or blah, 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 you just turn off the TV, turn off your cell phone, don't read a book, don't distract yourself. If you're gonna eat the pizza, eat the pizza. Don't tell yourself you shouldn't. Don't tell yourself how bad it is. Don't tell yourself any stories. Just sit with the pizza, fully concentrating on the pizza. Don't have a conversation, and just eat the pizza. Just with your awareness, be with the pizza. And then be with yourself after you eat the pizza. Again, don't beat yourself up. Don't be like, I shouldn't have done that. That was bad for my body. Blah, blah, blah. None of that. Just pay attention to how you're feeling. Pay attention to what you thought was going to happen when you ate the pizza and what actually happened. Okay? And in this awareness, when you don't let yourself check out, what's going to come up are the false beliefs you have about yourself, number one. And the second thing that's going to come up is anything that's self-destructive that you do with full presence and full awareness, no judgment, you're going to stop being able to do them. Okay? This is law. This is how it works. Because you already are your higher self. Right? And when you live from awareness, non-judgment awareness, you are being your higher self. You are letting go of all of these perceptions that say that you're a piece of shit and then you got to fix yourself and you got to do all this. Right? And you are starting to come into the reality of your higher self. And then anything that's out of alignment with that will simply fall away. And this is how it works. We can only hurt ourselves when we numb ourselves up, when we do it unconsciously. We cannot do it with awareness. Like really, people who are smoking are never fully aware of their smoking. Because when you really pay attention to that cigarette, and you pay attention to how it feels, and you don't beat yourself up, this is a huge key. You're not sitting there berating yourself. You're not telling yourself you shouldn't. You're not telling yourself how bad it is. Da, 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 da. You're just observing the actual action of smoking. You will not be able to do it. You might be able to do it a couple of times, but eventually you're just going to be like, I can't do this. It doesn't help me check out anymore. It doesn't allow me to go unconscious, and it feels terrible. And I don't want to do that anymore. Because you already are your higher self. You don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to be antithetical to yourself. You don't want to be in karma. It's just because you believe that you are shitty, that you do shitty things because you perceived yourself to be shitty. And therefore you punish yourself with these self-destructive behaviors. Okay? When you bring the light of awareness to everything you're doing, that's all you have to do. Literally. You don't have to meditate for a second. You don't have to do any yoga. You don't have to be nice to any old people. Okay? Just be aware while you do what you do. And you will find yourself being your highest self. And you will find that your highest self is maybe a little different than you thought it was. That it's not, like I say, this, moral code of like, this is what your higher self is like. Because we're all different. We're all individuals. We're all unique as a part of the whole. Just like the body is never going to become a gelatinous mass of every cell just being each other, right? Your heart is always going to be your heart, right? But when it's living in its highest purpose, it's functioning in a way that is fortifying for the entire body. Does this make sense? So you're not going to become an identity egoless blob in your highest self. That's not what that is. You're still living the relative truth with ultimate awareness that you are everything that you ever wanted to be, that you are connected to everything, that you are all. And then you're going to live your life from that place. And like I say in the last video, you're going to live your dharma. Things are still going to happen to you. You're still going to have trials. You're still going to have tribulations. Everything's still going to be. But your perception of those things are going to be completely different. From the perception of your highest self that there's nothing wrong with you, means that there's nothing wrong with life. Means that whatever happens to you, you're going to be able to be okay with. You're going to have pleasure. You're going to have peace in all of your circumstances. And that's really what we want. It's not that we want circumstances to be different. It's we want our experience of those circumstances to be different. So when you change your perception of yourself, you change your perception of everything. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. Like, subscribe, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, everything's down below. Come join us on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah.